Hey there, everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. We're focusing today on anyone who's interested in how the heart and blood vessels change as we age.
Especially for older adults and their caregivers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We're basing our deep dive today on this awesome medical encyclopedia entry.
Yeah.
And it's from Medline Plus,
Yeah.
which is a service of the U.S. National Library of Medicine.
Yeah.
So, we're talking reliable, in-depth stuff.
Absolutely. A fantastic resource.
Really is.
And what's really cool about it is that it's not just about getting older.
Right?
It emphasizes how lifestyle choices play a huge role in how our hearts age.
That's so reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
It's not all downhill after a certain birthday.
Definitely not.
This is already making me feel empowered just thinking about it.
Mm.
But hey, before we go too far, can we do a super quick review of the circulatory system?
Of course.
Just for anyone who might need a little refresher.
Absolutely. So let's start with the heart. Imagine it as this powerful pump, working nonstop to circulate blood throughout your body. And it's connected to this incredible network of arteries. Think of them like superhighways
I bet.
that deliver oxygen-rich blood to every single cell.
Okay, so I'm picturing these busy highways all over the place carrying important stuff.
Exactly.
What happens next?
Well, these highways, they branch off into smaller roads.
Okay.
These are the capillaries. And that's where all the action happens.
Right.
It's like this bustling marketplace where oxygen and nutrients are exchanged for waste products.
Gotcha. So that's where the cells get all their fuel and get rid of their trash.
Exactly.
Cool. Makes sense. What happens after that?
Well, then this deoxygenated blood, it travels back to the heart through the veins,
Right.
completing the circuit. So it's an amazing system.
It is super efficient.
Designed for efficiency.
Yeah. So now getting to the heart of the matter, how does this whole intricate system change as we age?
Even with the best care, certain parts of the heart naturally change over time.
Okay.
For instance, take the heart's natural pacemaker.
Right.
It can develop some wear and tear over the years,
Uh-huh.
which leads to a slightly slower heartbeat.
Interesting. So even the heart's rhythm kind of slows down a bit with age.
It does. And here's a fascinating fact. The heart itself,
Okay.
it might actually enlarge with age,
Really?
especially the left ventricle. But here's the catch. Even though it gets bigger, the amount of blood it holds might actually decrease.
Wait, really? So bigger heart doesn't necessarily mean it's pumping more blood.
Right.
So what's going on there?
It all comes down to the thickening of the heart wall, along with some changes in the electrical system.
Okay.
And this helps explain why an older person's EKG might look different from a younger person's, even if they're both perfectly healthy.
So it's not necessarily a cause for alarm if an older person's EKG looks a bit different.
Not at all. Aging itself brings about these changes. It's important to remember, though, that irregular heartbeats like atrial fibrillation are much more common in older adults.
Okay, so can you explain what's actually happening in the heart when someone has atrial fibrillation?
Sure. It's basically like an electrical misfire
Okay.
in the upper chambers of the heart,
Ah.
causing a rapid and irregular heartbeat. So instead of contracting smoothly,
Right.
the atria, they just quiver.
Huh.
And this can impact blood flow and increase the risk of complications like stroke.
Wow, okay. That sounds pretty serious. But you mentioned earlier that lifestyle choices can actually make a big difference.
Absolutely.
So it's not all just predetermined. Right?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
How we live directly impacts how our heart ages. Regular exercise, for example, can help maintain a healthy heart rhythm and strengthen that heart muscle.
That's great to know. So now what about the blood vessels?
Yeah.
They're crucial for delivering that oxygen-rich blood.
Absolutely.
I remember reading about these things called baroreceptors,
Right.
which are these amazing sensors that help regulate blood pressure.
They are.
What happens to them as we get older?
You're right. Baroreceptors are key for maintaining stable blood pressure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, though, they become less sensitive with age,
Uh-oh.
which can lead to some issues.
What kind of issues?
Well, like that feeling of lightheadedness when you stand up quickly.
Oh, yeah. My grandmother experiences that sometimes.
Exactly. That's called orthostatic hypotension.
Okay.
And it's much more common in older adults because of those less responsive baroreceptors.
So it's not just the heart itself that changes, it's the blood vessels too.
Absolutely. Even the capillaries, those tiny blood vessels,
Right.
they go through changes. Their walls can thicken, which can slow down that exchange of nutrients and waste products between the blood and the body's tissues.
I see. So is that maybe why older adults are more susceptible to cuts and bruises?
That's a great question. While capillary changes might play a role,
Okay,
other factors like thinner skin are also involved.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about the aorta, heart's main artery?
Yeah.
Does that change with age too?
It does. The aorta can become thicker, stiffer, and less flexible with age,
Yeah.
which makes it harder for the heart to pump blood efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
This can contribute to higher blood pressure,
Right.
putting extra strain on the heart.
So it's like this domino effect.
Mhm.
One change leads to another.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
Wow.
And these changes in the circulatory system can increase the risk of certain heart-related issues as we age.
That makes sense. So it sounds like we're about to get into some heavier topics.
Yeah.
Should our listeners be worried?
I don't think there's any need for alarm,
Okay.
but awareness is key.
Right.
Knowing what to look for and understanding the potential challenges empowers us to make informed decisions about our health.
You're so right. Knowledge is power. So what are some of the common heart-related issues that can arise with age?
Well, one we often hear about is angina,
Right.
which is chest pain or discomfort caused by reduced blood flow to the heart muscle.
Uh-huh.
It often feels like a tightness or pressure in the chest,
Yeah.
and it can radiate to the arms, neck, or jaw.
So it's like the heart's sending a signal that something's not quite right.
Precisely. And it's often triggered by physical exertion or emotional stress.
Oh, okay.
When the heart demands more oxygen-rich blood than it's receiving.
And what causes that reduced blood flow?
In many cases, it's due to narrowed or blocked arteries,
Right.
often as a result of atherosclerosis.
Ah, okay. So that's why atherosclerosis is such a big concern.
Exactly.
And I imagine shortness of breath is often linked to angina as well.
Absolutely. If the heart isn't pumping efficiently,
Right.
it can lead to fluid buildup in the lungs,
Okay.
making it harder to breathe, especially during physical activity.
And then there's the dreaded heart attack.
Yeah,
That's a serious medical emergency, right?
it is. A heart attack occurs when blood flow to a part of the heart muscle is completely blocked,
Oh, wow.
usually by a blood clot.
Oh, God.
This blockage deprives the heart muscle of oxygen,
Uh-huh.
and if it's not addressed quickly,
Yeah.
it can cause permanent damage.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So all of these conditions, angina, shortness of breath, heart attacks,
Right.
they're often linked to coronary artery disease, right?
Exactly. Coronary artery disease, or CAD,
Wait.
is the most common type of heart disease,
Uh-huh.
and it becomes more prevalent as we age.
Okay.
It's a major concern,
Right.
and actually the leading cause of death for both men and women.
Wow, that's sobering. We've covered some serious conditions here.
We have.
Are there any other common heart-related issues that our listeners should be aware of?
Yes, there are a few others. We mentioned abnormal heart rhythms earlier, also known as arrhythmias.
Right.
These are irregular heartbeats that can range from harmless to life-threatening.
Oh, wow. So can you give us an example of like a more serious arrhythmia?
Atrial fibrillation, which we touched on briefly,
Okay.
is one. It's a common heart rhythm disorder in older adults,
Okay.
causing a rapid, irregular heartbeat that can increase the risk of stroke.
So early detection and treatment are crucial.
Absolutely. There are effective treatments,
Okay.
including medication and procedures
Right.
that can help manage atrial fibrillation and reduce the risk of complications.
That's good to know.
Oh.
What about anemia? How does that relate to heart health,
Yeah.
especially in older adults?
Anemia is a condition where the body doesn't have enough healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen efficiently.
Uh-huh.
As we discussed earlier, older adults can be more prone to anemia because of slower red blood cell production
Right.
and potential nutritional deficiencies.
So anemia can basically make the heart work harder.
Exactly. If there aren't enough red blood cells to carry oxygen,
Yeah.
the heart has to pump more blood to compensate,
Right.
which can put a strain on it over time.
And what about congestive heart failure? That sounds pretty scary.
It can be a serious condition,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean the heart has stopped working.
Okay.
It means the heart isn't pumping blood as efficiently as it should.
So it's more like the heart is struggling to keep up with the demands.
That's a good way to put it. Congestive heart failure can lead to fluid buildup in the lungs and other parts of the body,
Okay.
causing fatigue, shortness of breath, and swelling in the legs and ankles.
We also talked about high blood pressure and orthostatic hypotension earlier.
Right.
Can you remind us of the difference between the two?
Of course. High blood pressure, also known as hypertension, is when the force of blood against the artery walls is consistently too high.
Okay.
It's often called the silent killer
Oh.
because it usually doesn't have noticeable symptoms.
So someone might have high blood pressure and not even realize it.
Exactly. That's why regular blood pressure checks are so important,
Right.
especially as we age.
And orthostatic hypotension is that dizzy feeling when standing up too quickly.
Precisely. It happens because blood pressure drops suddenly.
Right.
And it's more common in older adults due to those less responsive baroreceptors we discussed.
And we briefly mentioned valve disorders earlier. Can you explain what those are?
Sure. The heart has valves that control the flow of blood through its chambers.
Okay.
Valve disorders occur when these valves don't open or close properly.
Disrupting blood flow.
So it's like a door that's either stuck open or won't close all the way.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And one common valve disorder in older adults is aortic stenosis. It's a narrowing of the aortic valve, which restricts blood flow from the heart to the body.
That sounds like it would put a lot of strain on the heart.
It can, leading to symptoms like chest pain, fatigue, and shortness of breath.
And finally, there are transient ischemic attacks and strokes. What's the difference between those two?
A transient ischemic attack, or TIA, is like a mini stroke.
Okay.
It's a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain, often caused by a blood clot.
Okay.
It usually resolves on its own,
Okay.
but can be a warning sign of a potential stroke.
And a stroke is a medical emergency, right?
Absolutely. A stroke occurs when blood flow to a part of the brain is completely blocked,
Oh, gosh.
either by a clot or a ruptured blood vessel.
Oh.
This blockage deprives brain cells of oxygen and can cause permanent damage, leading to a range of disabilities. This is all so informative, but honestly, it's also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
What can people do to protect their heart health as they age,
Right.
especially if they're caring for older loved ones?
Yeah.
This must feel like a lot to take in.
It's understandable to feel that way. But the good news is that there are steps we can take to reduce our risk and support our heart health as we age.
Okay, so it's not just about accepting these changes as inevitable.
Not at all.
Okay.
There's a lot we can do to empower ourselves and take charge of our cardiovascular well-being.
That's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
So what are some practical tips for promoting heart health as we age?
Well, remember those risk factors we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
High blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, obesity, and smoking?
Right.
Controlling these is crucial.
Yeah, so many things to think about. It sounds like making healthy lifestyle changes is really important, for both older adults and their caregivers.
Absolutely. It's never too late to adopt healthy habits.
That's good.
Eating a heart-healthy diet, maintaining a healthy weight, and following your doctor's advice for managing any existing conditions can make a world of difference.
And you mentioned exercise earlier.
Yeah.
What kind of physical activity is beneficial for older adults?
Even moderate activity can be incredibly beneficial.
Right.
Aim for at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise most days of the week.
Oh, okay. And what are some examples of moderate intensity exercise?
Brisk walking, swimming, cycling, dancing.
Oh, fun.
Even gardening or doing household chores can count.
Oh, wow.
It's all about getting moving and elevating your heart rate.
I like that. This doesn't have to be strenuous or intimidating. What about regular checkups? Are those still important as we age?
They're more important than ever.
Okay.
Regular heart checkups, including blood pressure and cholesterol monitoring, are crucial for catching potential problems early on.
And there's a specific recommendation for men aged 65 and 75 who have smoked, right?
Yes, they should be screened for abdominal aortic aneurysms,
Okay.
which are dangerous weakenings in the aorta, the body's main artery.
Wow. So many things to keep in mind. It feels like a lot to juggle, especially for caregivers who are already managing so much.
It's definitely a team effort. Open communication between older adults, their caregivers, and their healthcare providers is essential.
That makes sense. Having a support system in place can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. And remember, even small changes can have a big impact on heart health. It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that progress over perfection.
And
this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
It's been my pleasure. I'm glad we could explore this important topic together.
And thank you, dear listener, for joining us on this journey of understanding the aging heart. It's truly remarkable how our bodies adapt and change over time.
It is. And by understanding these changes, we can make informed choices to support our heart health and live full and vibrant lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this question. Knowing what we now know, what's one small step you feel inspired to take today to prioritize your heart health or the heart health of someone you care for? Maybe it's a walk in the park, scheduling that checkup, or simply having an open conversation about heart health with a loved one. Every small step counts. Thanks for joining us, and remember, knowledge is power when it comes to taking care of our amazing hearts.